Hi, everyone. Let me just hit some buttons here. Hi, welcome to Michael's Week of Jewelry Making. We are so excited to be here today with another UV resin class. UV resin is a magical little tool that you will learn how to use completely in this class. If you are a total beginner to resin, if you are a total beginner to jewelry making, this is the class for you. We're going to take you through all the steps on how to create a beautiful piece of jewelry, earrings. You can turn them into necklaces almost instantly. So within this 1 hour class, we're going to be making several pieces of jewelry together and all in real time. So the product that we're using is UV resin. So it comes in this little bottle here. It's available in stores, in all Michaels stores. It's available on michaels.com, and it is a little bottle of magic. This is a liquid that turns into a hard glass-like plastic when you expose it to UV light. So we're going to walk through all the supplies that you need and all the steps that you need to take to feel comfortable working with a product like this. So if we switch to the top-down camera, these are some necklaces that we are going to make today. So you can see, and I'm going to hold this one up, you can get a better look at it. So these are necklaces that have a little metal frame. That metal frame is called a bezel. And these particular ones are open bezels. So which means, and here's one, which means that it's open. Like I can put my finger through there. There are closed back bezels available too, but I love these open back bezels with UV resin. So they are perfect for showcasing anything that you want to put inside the resin. It will be encased in this clear, hard plastic. So you can see we use some dried flowers here. This is actually a sticker that we used for a monogram. We use dried flowers with a bit of a background color. As you can see, it's kind of a gray, glittery background color. And this is also an opaque background color with a little bit of glitter. So we're going to show you how to do all of these things. How to use dried flowers, how to use bezels, how to prep them, how to cure the resin. And I'm so excited that you're joining us. So feel free to use the chat if you have any questions. I try to take a look at the chat and try to answer them as I go, but we have people who will be answering the chat for you as well. So let's walk through the supplies that you need. I don't know if we have anyone crafting with us today, but feel free to craft along if you have the supplies. So first of all, I have a work surface here with a silicone mat. So this just protects my work surface. You'll see that a lot of the things we use are silicone. That is because cured resin does not stick to silicone. It peels right off. So I have a silicone cup here. This is a mixing cup that we're going to use. I have a wood stick here. I have an assortment of dried flowers right here. When you buy them in the store, they look a little something like this. You get a lot of different color coordinated flowers and some greenery in there. So I have a few selected here. I have this, which is tape. It's a special resin tape that you're going to need when using bezels. And I have lots of bezels. So this is what they look like in store. They come in packs of 3 or 4. Lots of different shapes and colors available. And then I also have, let me unplug it, a lamp. This is a UV lamp, and it is very cute. It is available in a couple different colors, but you just plug it into a USB power source. And if I hit the button, you can see those lights come on. So this is UV light. This is the same thing that is in sunlight, which is why your creations will also cure in sunlight. So just keep that in mind with the positioning of your work surface. So if you are by an open window with sunlight streaming in, that might not be the best because that is going to cure your resin before you want to cure it. And then I also have a package here of a lot of different fun fillers, glitters, little metal charms. There's some flowers in here of stuff to kind of float inside the resin. And we'll go through all of the different things that you can use resin with. But first, let me just show you the basics. So here are the bezels. And you will need, as I mentioned, tape. So the big picture of working with UV resin is there's two main ways to work with it. One is bezels, and we're going to focus on this in this class. The second way of working with UV resin is with molds. This is a silicone mold. So at the end of the class, if we have some time, I'll show you a project inside one of these molds. But you'll notice that the mold is clear. You don't want to use any opaque molds like candy molds for this because it won't let the light get to where it needs to go. All right, so those are the two main ways of working with UV resin. As I mentioned, we're going to be focusing on bezels today. So first we need to prep the bezel. And I do that by using this special tape. This is a special polyester tape. And you may say to yourself, well, can I use packing tape or mailing tape? You can try, but you're not going to get great results because when this cures, it makes the tape stickier than it was when you started, and you can have a hard time getting that off. So I have the tape. I'm going to stick my bezel onto the tape and just actually use my silicone mat to kind of press it down. I did see a question come up in the chat. Can you reuse the tape multiple times? Yes, you can. So when we're done, we'll peel this off and we can use it again. All right, so that is ready to go. You just want to make sure that that tape is really stuck to the edges back here, because if it's not stuck, you may get some leakage out of any little pockets. Okay. Next question from Annie. Can you use the silicone mat instead of the tape? Yes, you can, and that is included in our instructions. You can. I just prefer using the tape because I can move it around and I can just work on multiple projects a little more easily with using the tape. All right, so we have our bezel prepped. Next, we use our resin. So the first time you use the resin, it does have a seal inside that you'll have to open. But after that, you just take off the cap, and this is going to pour directly from the bottle into the bezel. And our first pour is just a little bit to create a bottom layer. So you can see about how much. Let me bring you guys in a little bit. So you can see about how much I put in there. I'm using my wood stick and I am just bringing that to the edges so we can create a bottom layer. So I want to make sure that that resin makes contact with the walls of this bezel. And you can see it's self-leveling. And you can also see no bubbles. I didn't have to pop any bubbles. I didn't have to use any heat elements to pop the bubbles. This is ready to cure. So we always do, for bezels, you always want to work in layers. And your first layer is going to be this bottom layer. And so now I bring my lamp in. When I hit this button, you'll see the UV light comes on. And it has a timer, so this will run for 1 minute, and then you hit it again to run for another minute. So in this sort of like pre-cure step, I'm only going to run it for 1 minute. It doesn't really need more than that. Your final coats, you might want to run for more than a minute. And especially if you're adding tints and glitters, which we're going to do, and I'll show you how to do that. If you're adding those things, the light needs more time to get to where it's going. Because just imagine this is a liquid that only cures in UV light. So that UV light has to hit all of it. All right, so this lamp is still on. I'm going to turn it off. This was on for less than a minute, but I want you to see that that is now hardened. It hardens almost immediately. Within about 10 to 20 seconds, it already has that hardened texture. And let me just pull this up so you can, so you can see, you'll notice that the bezel gets a little warm, and that is natural. That happens from this chemical reaction that's taking place, that's turning this into a hard plastic. But you can see there's no bubbles. It is now prepped and ready for us to create on. And for this first project, I am going to keep it really simple. Before we get into the dried flowers, we're just going to use a sticker. Michaels has such a wonderful selection of stickers in their paper crafting aisle. And I love these glitter letters. Let's use a letter B. Do we have any letter B's out there? So it's just a sticker, and I love that it's silver and our bezel is gold. I like that contrast. So let's get this centered. That's probably the hardest part of the project, is just getting it centered. There we go. That just sticks right in there. And now you can add glitter, you can add color, you can add a lot of things, but for this very first project, we're just doing the basics. So our sticker's in there, and we just add more resin on top of it. You can see how nice that spreads, how nice it self-levels. Can we get even closer? How it self-levels. There are no bubbles. And I don't even really have to go in with my wood stick to mess with it anymore. It filled all the way to the edges perfectly straight out of the bottle. And so this is ready for the final cure. Bring our lamp in, and we're going to cure that. I'm actually going to cure that for 2 minutes while we talk about cure times. So if you're using our lamp, this is a 9-watt UV resin lamp. There are plenty of UV lamps out there that are at all different wattages. The thing that I would caution you on, if you're going outside of the Blue and Studio UV resin world, is just be careful that you're not using a lamp that's too strong, because very, very strong lamps, like up into like 100 watts, they can cure the resin almost too fast, and it might smoke a little bit, and you don't want that. So we love our very small little bridge style lamp for this craft. So cure times, when you don't have any glitter or tint, you only need about a minute or 2 to cure this, and it is going to be hard plastic, smooth, and no problems. Okay, so you can see that turned off after a minute, and I'm just going to turn it on again and let that go. If you're using a lot of tint, a lot of add-ins, a lot of glitters, a lot of flakes, you may want to let it cure for 3 to 4 minutes. If it's still a little bit tacky, just cure it for longer. You can't really over cure it. So that's not really much of an issue. Now, like I said in the beginning, you can cure this in sunlight too. If you can put it on a sunny windowsill, on a flat area, this will cure on a sunny day, 5-6 minutes. Even on a cloudy day, there's still UV light that's coming down from the sun. Even on a cloudy day, it's probably 20 minutes curing outside. Just be careful that no, dust or dirt or anything is going to fly into your piece while it's sitting outside. I prefer a sunny windowsill where it's a little protected. All right, so this has gone for 2 minutes. You see my light turned off, and let's see what we have here. So this is a little bit warm, but I'm touching the top of it. I'll tap it. You can hear that tap, that this is fully cured. So the only thing I have left to do is peel this back off. So you can see that it's a lot harder to peel it off than it was in the beginning. And then I can keep this piece of tape and reuse it. I'm just going to stick it down to my desk. But here's the back, and here's the front. Very, very simple way. And I can see that I didn't get the bee centered. I had one job to get that bee centered. You'll do a lot better job at it than I did, I'm sure. But you can see how simple it is to create a personalized monogram necklace pendant this is a necklace pendant. So to turn that into a necklace, just add a chain. Michael's has a ton of like pre-made chains. Let me find, I do have one here. Pre-made chains that already have the clasp on them. And so then you can just feed that chain through the loop. Oh, mine does not want to go through there. You can feed the chain through the loop, and then you have a necklace that's ready to wear. So that is ready to wear immediately. It's fully cured. So if we have any people that have done two-part resin, two-part resin takes 24 hours, 36 hours, something like that to cure. So you have to have a lot of patience. This craft is perfect for people like me who have no patience at all. I want to do something immediately. All right, so that's our first project that is definitely off center. So let's try again to do a little bit better. Next, I'm going to pick a rectangle shape. Starting again with my tape. And then I always look at my bezel and see if there's a certain side that I like better. I think I'm going to put this side on the bottom. Again, sticking my tape on either with my fingers or using my silicone mat to kind of like push it down. And let's do that first layer. Let me see if I can see this question. Can you please show? Sorry, I'm just getting caught up in the chat here. Question from Melissa was, will sunlight affect the final product once it is fully cured? It won't. I've forgotten about things and left them outside and for like a day and a half, and it was fine. Can you please show the resin you used for the first one? Here's the resin bottle that I'm using for everything. This is UV resin hard type. And there is a soft type resin that we're not covering in this class. A soft type resin cures to like a gummy bear consistency, but that is like only, 5% of projects you'll do. The typical UV resin is a hard type. So that's the bottle. All right, I'm trying to keep you zoomed in here. Whoop. Now, if you do get some bubbles, bubbles are possible. Bubbles can happen if you shook the bottle, if you like pour, like stop your pour, you can create air bubbles, which I'm going to try to do. I'm going to stop my pour here. See, I'm like pouring and just a little bit. I'm trying to get a bubble. They're kind of happening. Oh, there's a bubble. All right, let me just keep pouring. All right, I kind of poured a lot for the first layer, but that's okay. You can see that a lot of times the bubbles will just go away on their own. If it's a true air bubble, there's air pop caught in there, they'll kind of go away on their own. But if you have any left, you can pop them, like with your wood stick. Just get in there and pop them. If you can't pop them, sometimes if they're really, really small, like you can't pop it, you might want to scoop it out. All right, so there's our first layer. I did make that layer a little thick because I got excited doing trying to make bubbles, but let's go ahead and cure that first layer. Thank you to those who are crafting along with us. And I'm just getting caught up here. Can you use pictures? Okay, question in the chat is, can you use pictures? That's a great question. And yes, you can. Print out your picture on regular laser printer paper, however you can print a picture. And you can just sandwich it in between the resin, just like I did that sticker. And I'm going to show you an example. This gorgeous little silhouette here. This is actually a silhouette of my son. This is just a piece of paper that I have printed out and cut out very, very carefully and just sandwiched it in between the resin. There's really not much more to it than that. You can use stickers, paper, photographs, magazine clippings, confetti, all sorts of printed materials, scrapbook paper. All right, so this has cured for 1 minute. I have a question is, can you use inkjet paper? I haven't tried inkjet paper. I think it would be fine, but that I'm not sure because I don't have an inkjet paper, printer. So I've always used my own. Another question, if you don't like the result, can you pop it out? You can try, but maybe not. It depends on how well it is like kind of adhered to the sides. Okay, for this one, we are going to do some flowers. So I have some beautiful dried flowers here. And the easiest way to add them is to make a little like place for those flowers to go by putting just a little drop. And then I have my wood stick, and I've actually dipped my wood stick in the resin and then pick up the flower that way. Oh, come here. It's sticking to my paper. Come here, little flower, and then set that right in there. And I could stop here, but what's the fun of that? Let's add some more flowers. I'm just going to put that right in the middle. And let's get crazy here. And I'm going to add a rhinestone to the center of that flower. It's like begging for something to go in the center of that flower. So let's do a rhinestone. And this shows you another material. Oh, hold on, I might have to use 2 wood sticks to get it right. This shows you another material that works so well inside the resin is any type of rhinestone. All right, I kind of like it. Let's see, like that. And you can play with this forever. You can, the other tip that I have for you is if you have flowers like this, you can get in there and cut up those flowers so that it's more like flower confetti. So if I want some yellow flowers in there, just a little sprinkling, I can kind of cut this up with scissors. And then add them wherever I want. I want to add them up here. And just take your time getting these flowers where you want them to be. I'm sure you will take much more care than I am taking right now, since I am rushing like normal. Because once you put that resin in there and cure it, those flowers are locked in place. So you should love where you have them. All right, let me pick this up and just show you. I just added a little bit here and there. Now I can see that what's happening back here is I do have a bubble. Where is that coming from? Well, let's see once we cure it. Okay. All right, so all my flowers are in place. Instead of putting the final layer on top, I'm actually going to cure this for a little bit because I just want to lock them down. Like, you spend all your time getting these delicate flowers in place. What you don't want to do is pour a whole bunch of resin and it'll kind of like make it splatter everywhere. So you have your resin in place. You can cure in layers. Layers are your friend. When it comes to UV resin, layers are always your friend. And I don't need this to go long. A question in the chat is, can you color the resin with food color? I believe that you can, especially gel food coloring, but we sell special tints to do that. So I'm going to use some tints on the next project. All right, so let's see what we have here. I'm just going to go in with a final layer. You just want to make sure you have that bezel filled up completely to the top with resin. And I can kind of drag it to the edges and make sure it's making contact with all of the edges of this bezel. And let's give it a cure. So this is our final cure on this piece. And while that's going, I'm just going to show you our tints. So let me move this out of the way. With our tints, you're going to want a mixing bowl like this, silicone mixing bowl. This is sold in a little mixing kit for you. Here is what our tints look like. This is the blue tint. And of all of our colors, this blue is probably the strongest. So these are very concentrated. You only need a tiny little bit. But you do want to shake them before you use them. I'm going to use a little bit of blue and a little bit of white. All right, and this is still going, but I'm going to cut it short because I want to show you what we have here. Now, I did get a little bubble in the back here, and I think it's just because I did not make good contact on the back here with my tape to the bezel. So that can sometimes happen. It's a clear bubble. Yes. Let me turn around on the back. You can see that it's just, that's because my tape wasn't set down correctly. So I kind of like it when I make these mistakes so that way I can show you how not to do it. Let's try again here. Let's see. Let's do a silver. Let's do a silver bezel. And let's do a better job at sticking this down to the tape. So we have some tape, our bezel. I'll really make sure that that is stuck down there. Okay. And let's go ahead and do a first layer, just with a little bit. And bring that to all of the edges. All right. So the first step is always the same. Just putting a little light layer down in there. And I turn my light on, and we are going to let that cure. Saw another question about using paper. We have tried lots of different methods of prepping the paper for it to go in resin. So you'll see some tutorials, they'll tell you you have to put Mod Podge on the paper or the photograph first. We've tried that and we didn't really see that it makes that much of a difference. I prefer the easy route, which is just take it straight from the printer and cut it up and put it in the resin. You can put Mod Podge on it, and maybe that will work better for you. But for me, I didn't see enough of a difference. Other questions I see in the chat is, will it become sticky or soft over time? And the answer is no. Once it is cured, a chemical reaction has taken place where it is cured forever. It's going to stay in that hard state. Can you use a lighter for bubbles like 2-part resin? Yes, you can. It's just that bubbles aren't an issue with UV resin as much as they are with 2-part resin. 2-part resin has a lot of bubbles. It's like a real challenge to overcome. But with UV resin, not so much. Usually you can just pop the bubbles. And here's a pro tip, by the way. Do you see how I just turned that corner of the tape up? That's so that I can get a hand hold on here. If I try to hold over here, it sticks to me. So I like to flip my little corner up. Okay, so this is prepped and ready. Let's get some color going. So my silicone mixing bowl, I'm going to go straight in with some resin. You can see that has a bubble, but the bubble popped on its own. And now I'm going to put the tiniest bit of blue in there. I mean, a half drop, if I can do a half drop. Very, very concentrated. And then with the white, I'm going to do a whole drop of white. So these tints are available in 6 different colors. We have primary colors, black, white, and red. Well, no, sorry, black, white, and pink, plus the 3 primaries. All right, so let's mix this up, see what we get. All right, and so it's kind of like a creamy light blue. So I'm going to put that in as my next layer. So what I'm trying to do is get a color behind the flowers that I'm going to do. So my flowers that I put down are going to be on top of this. So just put in a very light layer, and again, move that to the edges. So you can see I do have a little bubble in there. And you'll find you get bubbles more often when you are mixing, because as you're mixing, you're kind of like whipping air in there. I'm going to try to pop this, which, okay, I was able to do that. There we go. That looks good to me. So now we have a light blue background, which I'm going to cure. So bring my light in, cure this. My bowl, take that away, because this still has some resin in it, and we don't want that to get anywhere near the light, because then it will crust over in there, and you don't want that. So we are going to let that go. As that's going, I'm going to prep my flowers. So here's a package of flowers. I'm going to open that up and get some greenery out. So I have this little greenery, which I can also use scissors and cut apart. So I can just pull that like little piece of greenery out of there. A question here, what happens if we don't use layers? If you don't use layers, you just have a higher chance of it not curing exactly right, or getting maybe a bubble between your layers. It's always better to use layers, I would say, especially if you're trying to build up for a very thick bezel. All right, so that has a beautiful background color now. It's kind of milky. And let's add a little more resin on there to give a place for our flowers to sit. All right, wetting the tip of my wood stick here, and I'm going to go pick up some flowers. Let's see, that will look good, but it'll take up the whole thing. And I wanted to get some greenery in there. Let's put our greenery in first. We'll put a little bit over here. And because you control the cure, like, you can take your time with putting these flowers directly where you want them. You can take a break. You can come back to it tomorrow, and it will, as long as you don't have any natural light coming into your work surface, you can come back to it tomorrow and it'll still be ready to go. All right, I'm going to put this larger flower on top, which I'm not loving because you can see the greenery through it. So let's keep layering. Layer that on top. And now we can get really fancy and start putting some cool stuff on top of that. Let's see here. Some little pearls. Let's get some of these guys out. If you need a little bit of extra resin just to be able to pick up those pearls, just put one dot down. And then I can go in here and go one by one and place these. I'm actually going to put some resin down here so they'll be stickier. Okay, so just 3 pearls in the middle. And I like the way that looks. I'm going to stop there, but you keep going. You can add glitter just around the edges. Looks really cool. And I'll show you some examples. But let's lock that down. Let's cure that. And then we will put a final layer on top. This class is available for you to watch later. It will be up on Michael's YouTube channel probably tomorrow, usually about 24 hours later. So you can watch it to your heart's content. Let's see. Personal protective measures. Let's talk about that. We did not talk about that in the beginning. So if you have sensitive skin, an allergy to resin, use gloves. I don't use gloves with resin, but that's my choice. If you are worried about it, use gloves. The one thing you want to be careful about, though, whether you have gloves or not, is if you get resin on your skin, just make sure you wipe it off before you turn your light on, because you don't want it to cure on your skin. That, you know, it gets warm, and you don't want that to happen. So and I would work in a well-ventilated room or use a mask. All right, so this is what we have so far. I'm going to add some more resin on top to finish it off. So I'm pouring in one stream, and you can see it kind of leveling out to the edges, but I can go in. Let's get this really close. So I can go in with my stick and just make sure that we've made contact with all these edges here, and it looks like we have. So let's give it a final cure. You can't really see that blue color because I have a blue mat, but when I pick it up here in a minute, we'll see. Let's keep that light directly over it. There's a question from Debbie. Can you design with paint or alcohol inks on the first cured layer, let it dry, and add resin on top? Absolutely, you can. In fact, you'll see some beautiful resin art online of people doing many, many layers of paint where they're building up a 3D shape. That can be very, very beautiful if you have the patience for it. But yes, you can paint in between layers as long as you're sandwiching something between 2 layers of resin. Almost any material that you can think of will work. The one material you want to stay away from is fresh flowers. So make sure that all the moisture is out of your flowers before you start putting it in resin, because with moisture inside there, over time it may look beautiful to begin with, but over time it's going to get gross inside there as it like decomposes. All right, so that went for a minute. I'm actually going to let that go for another minute. And there was a question about how do you clean up the bowls, and let me just move this to the side. Move this off to the side. Here's our bowl. It still has liquid resin in it. I'm going to use that in a mold just because I have leftover, and why not? But I want to show you how to get flowers to work in molds. So let me see here. Let me pause this. So here's a teardrop shape. I'm just going to go in with a little bit of clear resin in the mold. The difference between using a mold and a bezel is a couple things. Number one, the bezel obviously has a metal frame, and this finished piece won't have a metal frame to it. But you use a lot of the same techniques. You just have to do it in a little different order. So I'm putting down that clear, then I'm going to put my flower on top of the clear. And then I'm going to put the blue in the back. And this is a great way to use up any extra resin that you have. You want to fill up the cavity. You'll notice that each cavity of the mold has these little pegs. That's going to create your hole that you need. All right, so bringing this lamp over. The lamp is perfectly sized for the mold to slip underneath it. And then my extra tiny little bit here, I'm just going to kind of put it next to the lamp. The easiest way to clean this up is to cure it, and then it'll pop right out. And I'll show you a little trick. So trying to get all three of these in there at once. But let's show you what we have here. So here's our piece we made. Let me take the tape off. Here's what the back looks like. And that's because it's not fully cured. So I'm actually going to keep it oriented this way and put it under there with his friends. All right, so I'm going to let that go for a couple minutes while I show you options. So these are other options of things that we've made with bezels. So here we've used beads inside the bezel. That's just beads, seed beads, like in rows. Here, when we've almost everything I'm going to show you now, we have done a class on. We've done dozens and dozens of these UV resin classes. All of them are up on the Michael's YouTube channel. And so this is a special Christmas ornament type project that we did where we used pieces of wire inside there to create like little separations. This is a class we did on making beach jewelry. So you can see that we use sand. This is actual real sand with some seashells, and we made little waves by using tinted blue and white resin. This is another class that we did on making sunset and cloud pieces. So here we use some blue resin with some little flaky iridescent things and some clouds. The clouds are made from soap, regular white bar soap. Here's an example of a bezel we made with dried flowers with a colorful background. And I made the similar thing, let me turn it around this way, in a mold. So you can see you can get the same look in a mold or by using a bezel. It's just that the mold doesn't have an edge to it. So that's my show and tell. All right, this is all still curing. A question from Nancy, does all resin need UV light? Actually, no, this is a special resin that is a UV resin. And it is the only type of resin that needs to cure in UV light. Most often, other resins or epoxy resins are a two-part resin where you're mixing two liquids together. That does not need UV light, just this kind of resin does. All right, so this is still curing. You can see that what was left in here, it's kind of mostly cured. And I can just pop that out. and clean it. And similar with all these little bits. I can just pop that out. That's the easiest way to clean it. So here's the back of my flower. I keep messing up these tapes. I'm gonna have to check out, maybe this tape that I have is old, but it left a little bit of a bubble that's visible from the back, not visible from the front. You can see the benefit of putting like, this is semi-opaque, it's not fully opaque, background. It just makes your flowers kind of pop. And here is my mold piece. I'm not actually done with this because I didn't fill up the mold completely. I'm going to add some more resin and fill that up. Lots of different molds are available at Michael's. We have molds that make bracelets, like hoop bracelets. We have molds that make earring components, molds that make rings. And this mold that you're looking at is actually an exclusive Michael's mold. This is a perfect mold for making earrings. So you can see very easily you can make these kind of bar earrings, circle earrings. Let's cure that last piece down. I'm just scrolling through your comments to see if there's anything that I haven't addressed here. What happens if you over cure it? There's not really a danger of over curing this. It won't affect it. It doesn't make it brittle. It doesn't make it anything. So better to err on the side of curing it more. Is the finish high gloss? It is, I wouldn't say it's high gloss. It can be very glossy, like you can see. This is very glossy. You can always add an extra layer of the UV resin on top to add more gloss. And then another question, can you use alcohol to make the bubbles pop? Bubbles aren't really an issue with UV resin. If you do get bubbles, it's better to try to pop them with like your wooden stick or a sharp object, or scoop them out. Can you store the extra resin and use it for later? Yes, you can keep extra resin, like if you've mixed a color that you love in a mixing cup, and just like cover this cup with some other, like a coffee mug or something turned upside down so that no light will get to it. And that'll make sure that it doesn't go anywhere. All right, so here's our mold piece. That's what it looks like coming out of the mold. You can see that it's shiny, it's smooth, it's fully cured, and it has a flower down in there. So that's how easy it is to use the mold. Do we have time for one more? Let's see. All right, let's do one more. And this one I'm going to use some glitter so you can see how to do that. So let's bring out two bowls here. Actually, let me prep my bezel first. All right, thin layer at the bottom. Bringing that to the edges. Ooh, sorry, I keep jiggling the camera because I have you very zoomed in and my wood stick keeps hitting it. All right, let's cure that first layer. And that's going to go for a minute. All right, so that's been almost a minute. And now let's mix up some fun stuff. So this, I'm going to mix up 2 bowls. One of them I'm going to put pink. Well, actually, this is red. And one I'm going to leave clear and put glitter. Now you can add as much glitter as you want, depending on how thick you want the appearance of the glitter to be. So let's mix that up. And let's mix our pink mix over here. All right. So in our bezel, we can try to like pour it both at the same time. Maybe let's start with the red, actually. I'm going to start with the red on the bottom. Then pour a little bit of this on the top. And then you can go in with your stick and try to create like the perfect gradient. And you can, these swirls can be very beautiful, but let's see if we can kind of work that into each other. And I always keep a paper towel off to the side, so when you see my wooden stick go away, it's because I'm wiping it off on there. I like this swirly look. This would be really beautiful if I did blue. I should have done blue because then we'd have a galaxy look. That would be awesome. And let's see, what else do I want to put on this? What's in my bag of goodies over here? I do have some little stars. Let's just pretend that, ooh, got a lot of them. I'm just playing around here, guys. You, I'm sure, can think of a million fun things to put inside this resin. It is very easy to do and very easy to find inspiration. Here, I just put some little glitter stars. And let's cure it. The question came up, can you use alcohol ink to color the resin? No, you cannot, actually. It doesn't, you can try it. What you'll find is that it doesn't mix in well with the resin itself, and kind of stays separate from the resin instead of infusing the color through it. You can use alcohol inks with 2-part resin. That's really beautiful. And you can use it if you sandwich it in between two layers of resin, but to use it to color the resin is not the best. I really suggest using the UV resin tints specifically, like this one that I'm trying to show the camera there, like that one. All right, we're wrapping it up here. While this cures, let me just go through and see if we have any other questions. What are some other things to make with resin other than jewelry? Well, you can make a whole lot of things. UV resin is perfect for smaller projects. My husband uses UV resin. He's a scale modeler. He uses it to add gloss to things, and he uses it actually as an adhesive. It's a wonderful adhesive for bonding metal to plastic, metal to glass, lots of different bonds that you can make with UV resin, just using it as an adhesive. All right, so in this piece, I would probably cure it for a couple more times since I did add all of those stars and that glitter and that stuff. So I want to make sure that it is cured all the way. Another question that came up in the chat is, does the UV resin expire or go bad? What it will do if you have an old bottle of resin is it may kind of separate a little bit in the bottle, so you want to stir it before you use it. You don't really want to shake it because you don't want to get bubbles in there, but stir it, and that'll just, you know, bring the ingredients that have separated, bring them together, and it should work fine. Just make sure you're stirring it at you're storing it at a consistent temperature and that it isn't exposed to light. All right, wrapping it up here. Let's see what we have here. Do you replace the light bulbs? No, the light bulbs are not replaceable, but these lamps last for a really long time. If your UV resin is a little bit sticky after you cure it more, cure it longer, and you may just want to put it in a sunny windowsill. The light from the sun, the UV rays from the sun are so powerful, you can't replicate that in a lamp. It works great to cure resin. Thank you so much for joining us. We are doing UV resin classes. We're doing polymer clay jewelry making classes. We have another class next weekend that's already up on michaels.com, but please come back and check michaels.com for our classes. We love when you show up. We love when you craft along with us. Thank you so much for joining. And that's going to be it for today. Thank you.